Morning everyone, how are we all feeling? Anybody nervous? No, just me, right. While Em is dragging that up, can I just have a show of hands? How many of you in the group are food producers, land managers, farmers? My talk's mainly is going to be more aimed to food producers, I suppose, and farmers. That's what I am at heart anyway. That's certainly where my passion is, and you'll probably see why as we go along. A bit of an overview, I suppose, on what I'll try and go over this morning without running over time. I'll give you a bit of a quick background on myself and the business that myself and my wife run. Before we get into talking about carbon, I actually want to talk about how important we are as food producers. A bit of a point I think that we kind of all know, but we probably sort of forget or we lose over time. Why do we need carbon in our soils? It's already been spoken a bit about this morning, but I suppose I'll try and reinforce the farmer's knowledge part of it, and how we get it there, and some of the systems that I'm running to get it there. And then I'll really go in and show you what we do at home, I suppose, and talk about what we do at home, and show some photos, a lot of photos of different things we've stumbled upon, I suppose, and where my journey in carbon, how it started and where it's got to. So background, I'm a fourth generation food producer. Now I say food producer, I can't claim lay claim to that. I listened to a guy speak and he said if he got into, became Prime Minister, the one thing he banned would be the word farmer. And he said if we're called a food producer, then when people talk and they say I'm a food producer, people are instantly recognise and associate it with what they live on every day. Our property, Glen Island and Glen Island West, we're in southwest Victoria, just south of Lake Veale. There'll be a map of it come up in a minute. And I run around 1,160 hectares of basically my own and my father's and mother's properties. And in the last 6 months, we've just started a collaborative farming venture with another farming family. They're about 20 minutes away. So we've pushed both the farms together and created a whole new business that incorporates the business of farming. Each family owns their own land assets, but we've made one new farm, I suppose, out of two previous family farms, and I'm managing the entire business called LV Pastoral. I'm married. As behind, what do they say? Behind every good man, there's an even better woman. Well, Julie's the one that's sort of behind me and helps me out with everything, and I've got a couple of boys. Our main enterprises on both properties is cropping land, mutton and wool. And our secondary enterprises are agroforestry, a number of different trees from pine, cypress, red gum, blue gum, spotted gum, she oaks, blackwoods. I have got the most hostile, terrible soils with incredibly shallow, a lot of buckshot. Yeah, they're hard to deal with, and the clay underneath it is so high in sodium, it's toxic to plant roots. Like we're always pushing against trying to get plant roots to push down into our subsoils, and it's a big limiting factor in our cropping. So much so we don't, especially on any country like that, we don't even grow white wheat because white wheat won't tolerate sodium. I can get the crop to look okay, but I just cannot get it to go to grain and get yield off it. So, what does increasing soil carbon do for us? It's been covered off a little bit this morning, but carbon forms, it's a base of all organic matter. 58% was the figure that said. Increasing carbon gives soil structure, water holding ability, nutrient holding capacity, which was the comment about the sand. In sand, it's hard to get the nutrients to hold there, but you get more carbon in there, you'll just store more nutrient, hold more nutrient. So it has a massive role to play in storing nutrient. It makes the nutrient cycle faster, so it'll cycle around faster and make the plant, especially humus. It's all plant available. That you hold in humus. It's big for biological activity, driving biological activity, getting a home for microbes to live, and the base for them to break down other organic matter and turn it into humus. It drives a lot of plant health. It makes plants more. You've got carbon, which gives you more nutrient cycling, more biological activity. You grow a healthier plant that's more resilient to disease, pest, Microbes increase carbon in the soil through a whole matter of, for a start, they're made up of carbon. Different microbes have different ratios of carbon and nitrogen, which Heather spoke a little bit about what we could roughly expect at 10 to 1, but different microbes have different ratios of that, so they're made up of carbon, plus they break down organic matter and help us to create humus, so they're pretty important. How do we increase soil carbon? Which is what I set out to do when I started on the soil carbon, and what I quickly learnt was perhaps I'd be better off just to stop it leaving my soil. Focus on that rather than actually trying to increase it. I was a 75% by land use cropper, and I quickly learnt that building it in cropping was going to be near on impossible. If I could just hold the lot and not lose it, I was going to be probably well ahead of the game. So it's a bit like the bare dirt thing. Every time you till the soil, there's a loss of carbon through volatilisation of carbon up into the atmosphere, as well as the fact that you create a bacterial bloom in your soil and you kill off your fungi. So traditionally, and I asked the question yesterday, I don't know about these soils here, but I'll be guessing that they're bacterial dominant. There's not too many soils around that aren't, and we're certainly very bacterial dominant at home, and especially in cropping probably more so than a pasture situation. And it's probably fungi more that we want rather than bacteria. Fungi can, there's specific strains of fungi that are better at breaking down organic matter for sure, but fungi are probably, we need to get if we get our fungal levels up in our soil, it'll balance out our grass a little bit better. So tillage kills off the fungi and it gives a bacterial bloom at the same time. Now there's a few photos here of why I started to look at carbon. Hopefully you can see from there, can you see how more dense the crop is sort of in that area there compared to there? And there the photos, always throw the camera case down, it gives a pretty good reference point, I suppose, as to the density of the crop. What we believe that to be is where a red gum tree was once upon a time. Hasn't been there since we've owned the property, but just in the way that we reckon that the soil has sitting is that's what was there, and that would have been quite common around our area. There would have been so many red gum trees. The crop was so much better, and we went out and the heads had all filled properly, and it was plump grain, and beside it was sort of struggling, like it just wasn't filling the same, and pinched, and we thought what we need to do, if we just make all the farm look like that, we've got it made. What's the difference? So we did some soil tests, and the test came back, and before, once again, before the carbon days, and it's down on the bottom, wrong spot on the soil test, because it's down the bottom, or it used to be. So I'm reading up the top: nitrogen, double; phosphorus, not quite double; sulphur was higher; potassium was higher; zinc was double; copper was higher. And we're like, it's double, but why is it double? Well, obviously, we've just got to keep working on our soil and get our the CECs were a little bit higher. Calcium magnesium ratio was better, so we thought need to work on our calcium magnesium ratio. And down the bottom, you're reading there organic carbon, was double. In a spot like that, it'll be about almost 5. In a spot like that, it's probably about 2.5. When we're this was country that had been in a cropping system for probably 15 years too. And organic carbon's double. Oh, didn't know anything about organic carbon, and it's only now that I realise that the reason everything else was double was because the carbon was double. If I'd have known that, I'd be a fair way advanced to what I am now, I would hope. This is what we run now as a sowing machine, so we've gone to a no-till disc drill, just trying to cut down on the tillage side of things. It's provided us challenges with management too. It's a totally different way of thinking, but basically the disc just cuts the soil, and then it pushes the dirt to the side, blows our seed in, and then closes the soil back up again. Very little disturbance. So we bought a compost brewing, I suppose, setup. We take a few different sorts of compost. We try and hunt down our compost to be very fungal dominant, and some worm castings to chase down some other microbes that we're after. We put them in this stripper unit and basically strip the microbes out of the organic matter. So a good compost will be made up of 50% microbes. If we put 100 litres of compost in that unit and with water and then belt the hell out of it with air and basically tear the microbes off the organic matter, we'll only have 50 litres of actual organic matter will come back out. So the other 50% is microbes that are now immersed in water. they go down to a screening unit, or basically the whole lot gets screened, so we pull off all the large particulate matter and get it down so it's fine, so then when we do spray it out, it'll go through our spray nozzles. Then we throw it in what could look like a very large star bath. So that one holds 5,000 litres. We put the inoculum that we've stripped, it's got all our stable microbes in it that aren't basically activated, they've just gone into a stable state. A lot of them are sporated and basically just sitting in a finished compost, stable, ready to have more food or something thrown at them to start, to breathe and activate again. I get asked quite often is that how do I start? Like if you're wanting to go into microbes and whatnot, is that how to start? So these are just some of the cheap ways to get started. Garden sprinklers onto the back of a boom. Because microbes can be a bit hard to put through conventional boom spray, especially if you're trying to run your nozzle selection, becomes difficult because otherwise they just won't go through. You can't put filters on, you've got to take all your filters off when you're running them out of conventional boom sprays. So we started with that, with the water going everywhere. So these are great in a pasture situation, so for anybody wanting to do, I think actually whether it be microbe work or foliar work in a pasture situation, they're cheap. As long as you don't use them on a windy day, they're great. We do a lot of our own custom fertilising, or we do some custom fertilising blends, so depending on what our soil tests say, and we do a lot of sap testing of plants. They do a lot more in pastures now, but also in crops. Because we see the response faster in crops, that's where we've started. And then we blend our fertiliser to suit, so blend our liquid fertilisers to suit. If we're needing more zinc and copper, we put that in. For us, boron's a big limiting factor. It's not too bad in the soil, but it's not coming through in our plants. So we'll put in extra boron to try and get our plants to then take up calcium out of the soil, so to give them the boron to get the boron to cycle the calcium. A few other bits and pieces that we can throw in there at the same time. So when we go doing foliar work, we can have all sorts of different trace elements in our brews, and we buffer the whole lot with a really high carbon compound because it stops leaf burn, it gets the stuff into the plant faster, and it just stops the plants burning or suffering any ill effects. You can see there where the compost tea's gone on, which was amazing in its own right, especially I found it on a field day where people were wanting to drive over and look at what I was doing with cropping. I didn't even know it was there until we drove over it. And we put the sheep in there, and that is 24 hours after the mob of sheep went into the paddock. The whole paddock is forage. It's 60 acres nearly, that paddock. Pretty big mob of sheep immediately went in there, but geez, they found where the good stuff was and had it eaten in no time. So that, once again, the plant health, the bricks levels, it was all there, and I probably had it all in the soil, and I just needed a heap of extra microbes to sort of get it all to come through. My biggest thing, I reckon, what will become good out of carbon credits is it'll reward people for good management techniques, because you've got to have good management techniques to sequester carbon. So you've got to have the things that Heather talked about, I've talked about, 100% ground cover, no tillage, or minimum tillage. You've got to be at the forefront of all those, what's classed, or some of them I suppose are classed as environmental best management practices, but all good land management practices of ground cover, rests, managing stock well. And if carbon credits come in, we can get paid for doing that job really well. We can get paid for doing what most of us do anyway, but at least it's a way of us being recognised for it and financially recognised for it. So to me, that'll be the good thing to come out of carbon credits. The whole CO2 debate's another debate, but it'll do part of that, I'm sure. But it'll reward good land managers for good land management and help give other people that probably aren't focusing on carbon an incentive to start. And it is a slow process, but worth it in the end, I think.